Hello, I'm back with an update on the situation with the clutches. I've been rebuilding the clutch baskets, that's this section here, because the springs are shortening and causing that awful chatter and noise as the bike idles, with the gearbox in neutral, the clutch lever released away from the bar. And previously as well I've shown a problem in the lamellar pack, that's the friction plate pack. The shortage of lubrication in the early bikes. I showed in a video how this unit here is being used to restrict oil flow, which comes down the main shaft to then lubricate the whole of the clutch. This is the latest version I've seen in an engine. They've clearly gone to the lengths of putting two good deep grooves in now, so there is now adequate oil coming out of the end of the shaft. This is the clutch release bearing. Normally there would be the end of the gearbox shaft there. So we take the clutch out, the lamellar pack out of the clutch basket itself. I'm taking this in bits before I take it out. Normally you would have undone the big nut in the middle and lifted it out all as one. So this is the lamellar pack. In other words, it's the complete pack of friction plates, which are these with the tangs on, which have the friction material on them. In between there are the steel plates, which are on splines to the hub in the middle here, and then we have the pressure plate here, which is what squeezes the whole lot together with the aid of this spring on the outside to take up the drive. The issue has been that the clutch has not been getting anything like enough oil into the middle here. The oil passes out through holes designed all around. I'll say it here, these have got I think 8 or 9 holes. Most I've seen have 12, 14, something like that, so it's not a lot. Plus the oil wasn't getting out the middle of the shaft to where it should be either. I'll put that aside at the minute, and I'll show you what I did come up with first of all to show folks. Admittedly it was perhaps a bit alarmist, but this is what the clutch lamellar pack looks like on the early bikes when you get it out. I'm not saying you'll have one as bad as that, but you can see it's the face here is all dished away, the lining's almost completely gone. Some of the plates through the rest of the pack as I lift them out are alright, but it's not good. And it's a similar story if we turn the pack over and have a look at the side that the pressure plate's been working against again, with a distinct lack of lubrication, and the plate lining is completely gone. This was actually sold to me by a second-hand parts dealer as a good working clutch, but I think it's going back to him. The later idea from BMW with a bit nothing like as improved a lubrication flow as this, with just one groove in actually, and this is a pack out of one of those. This hasn't suffered as badly at all, but the plate here that was against the hub has lost all its lining, and it had completely worn the hub face away, so that's not bad. But here we are, on the other side it's fine, but the rest of the clutch has been hot, so it's been slipping. You see that dark colour there, so there's plenty of friction material left on some of the other plates, but it's been hot because I wouldn't say the clutch has been abused, it's just that the poor old thing has lost all its linings off this one here, not being able to hold tight enough, so it started to slip. And when you're bowling along at 80-90 miles an hour, a lot of wind in your helmet and so forth, you're not quite certain whether your clutch is slipping or not. It could only be slipping a small amount, but it could be generating a lot of heat and doing that kind of damage. So what I've come up with is even the latest version of clutch, which I have here now, as I say, out of this is probably what everybody's had fitted as an upgrade over the years, and certainly what I believe is now being fitted as the standard clutch to the bike. You will get 2 grooves in there to let the oil out of the end of the shaft, and it'll work its way into these, but it's still not actually getting where it's supposed to get to. This basket's done 20,000 miles. Owners asked me to have a look at it and find out what the problem was. Sorry, this hub has done 20,000 miles, and we see straight away that they've introduced now a damper, which is a damping spring inside to try and improve the feel of the clutch, but of course my view is that the problem isn't really that the clutch needs that damper. The problem is that this last surface here, where this friction plate runs, is still not getting enough oil. They've gone to all sorts of lengths of putting extra roots through for the oil to get in, but I think you can see quite clearly that that's heavily grooved where the friction lining has you can see the daylight underneath. So that's bad news. The pressure plate at the other end of this pack is in similarly poor condition. This clutch bit alright, in fact it bit a bit fiercely. It was you barely took your lever away from the bars and that was it. It was all on, you were off, you were away. So there's still a problem. The oil's still not getting where it should get. They've been part of the way there along their journey, because this particular clutch here that came out of a bike, that was its set of plates, and there wasn't a damper plate in at all, as you saw in the other one, in the later one. I'll just clarify that this damping ring, it's a spring ring and it's meant to create some spring in the whole pack. That's a little disc spring or big bevel washer. It gets all sorts of different names, but it's basically a spring, and it's made to stop the pack going up tight and firm. It just gives it that bit of sponge as it goes up. You still get the same amount of drive through your clutch in the end, it just slows the bite. Now the problem is that this particular face here, which is typical of what you're probably going to find in all bikes going forwards now, other than maybe 2000 and pre-2007 bikes, it's still not getting the oil, and of course by going for this a modified clutch plate to allow them to get that damping ring in, you've only got half the area of friction material there working on here, which is why that's eaten into there. So what I'm offering to do now is actually run a service where rebuild the lamellar pack complete and return it as a rebuilt unit, with the surfaces something like restored to how they should be. This is a new one, or nearly new one. It's not worn at all, but that's what they should be like. Forgive the change in colour there, it's just this has run a little bit, so that's changed colour to that from the original manufacturer's machining. It'll have extra holes around here for the lubrication, which are essential. I'm going to run these up and put oil inside and prove that the oil gets out to everywhere in the lamellar pack. This is the pressure plate. This pressure plate, it's the same age, this is all one assembly out of one bike, very low mileage, but even here you can see that it's started to get a lip. You just see a bit of daylight there, I think. Sun's gone in, but there is some daylight underneath there. There's a lip on this inner edge and a lip on the outer edge again. It's been short of oil, so as the drive's been taken up, the friction lining has worn this away. So that's it. I'm offering to do rebuilt lamellar packs. Send old packs in, I'll rebuild them. The BMW plates are not bad, but once they're in that state and you've got the whole thing in bits, I think it's worth redoing the whole lot. You'll notice that the plates I was showing you are very smooth, as well as being darkened, but they were just a smooth finish. There was no attempt at doing anything here than grinding those flat so they were nice and smooth, but they're very bright. A lot of the Japanese clutches I've rebuilt for people, they use plates like this, which are, I don't know how to describe this, but they have lots of little punch marks all over the surface. Two good reasons for that. One is it stress relieves the plate itself a little bit anyway and keeps it nice and flat as part of the manufacturing process. But the other great thing is it works a little bit like a tyre tread, so that as your clutch plate is rubbing on there, the friction surface is rubbing on there, it lets the oil get out of the way and go into the little holes. So it gets a better grip, improves the feel of the clutch, the friction surface getting hold on there, but also then once the friction surface has been clamped in place, particularly overnight or for a long time, of course, because there's oil on these friction surfaces and oil there, you've got a large area there and it wants to stick. You get that horrible snatch out of the gearbox in the morning when you first start the bike up. You pull the clutch in, select first gear, and you get a big crunch. What that'll do is it'll reduce that stiction. I'm not saying it'll get rid of it altogether. Very cold morning, bike stood for a long time, you're bound to get some, but it'll reduce that and it'll let the plate come apart much easier, because you won't get that rubber sucker effect of the friction pad tight against a polished plate. Now these are the actual plates I've managed to get from an aftermarket manufacturer. The Japanese manufacturers are fitting these plates as standard to their bikes. They're the best made plates I've seen, short of actually buying original Japanese manufacturers' plates. Someone tells me that they're from the Far East still, and they are probably what the Japanese manufacturers are buying to then put in their clutches as they assemble the bikes in Japan. Hope that's been fairly self-explanatory. There is a lot to clutches, but I'm now confident that we can get them right with new plates, better steels, and a modification to the hub to improve the lubrication and avoid all this eating in and, well, quite frankly, horrible behaviour from your clutch. That's a suddenness at takeoff and a squeal, which will be down to the tapering effect there, the locking in of the friction material into the taper rather than just being nice and smooth, and a wedging effect like a V-belt goes into a groove on a pulley on a V. It gives that effect. It's awful. So we get rid of that. We'll improve the lubrication up there as well, and hopefully we'll have some bikes with long-lasting clutches that are much nicer to ride. Thanks for listening in.